Hey, thank you all so much for joining another episode of Celeste, the Therapist Podcast. My name is Celeste. I'm a therapist from Boston. I'm going to have my guest introduce himself to you all.
Hi, yes, I'm Jermaine Morris. I'm a coach and consultant based out of Sacramento, California. Everything that I do, the practice is based around a DISC assessment, which is basically a test that shows how we as individuals, how we interact, how we are with problem solving, interacting with people, systems orientated. It's a great test. It comes with a report that shows everything about us, blind spots and behavior, all kinds of things. And so I like to work under the premise of self-awareness without judgment. And so helping people learn themselves better and then using that information for whatever their goals in life are.
Yeah, and I mean, there's always new people, I'm sure, that listen to that podcast, but and I like asking this question with you periodically. So Jermaine comes on um very often, and I think it's important for us to understand why it's important to understand ourselves. What would you say to someone that is they're like, I know myself, but a lot of people don't really realize they don't really know themselves. But what are the kind of loopholes or the dark spaces that people don't realize they may be missing on?
Yeah. A key point, one thing is there's the way that we are when everything's fine. We feel like we're firing on all cylinders, we feel comfortable, we feel okay. And then there's the us that we become when we're under stress or under pressure, or really maybe we hear the phrase like really getting in our own head, to really start thinking about stuff. And so that's usually where those blind spots start to show up. Like we can say, I know myself perfectly fine when things are perfectly fine. But is the angry version of me the same as the perfectly fine version? Is the scared version the same? Is the stressed out version the same? Usually, if we talk to the people closest to us, they'll tell us they know the difference. They, know how we get, but we may not know it. We only know the aftermath, like the effects after we've reacted. And so when we have an idea of what our potential blind spots are, then we can better manage them because we can get ahead of them and we can put ourselves in situations that are that we can minimize them, or at least, like I said, be mindful when we get into those spaces and those moods.
Yeah, that's good. And a lot of people, you say sometimes you don't realize it till somebody says something. Some people end up having interventions with their friends. Some people end up tiptoeing around certain things because, it's rare you have relationships where the person could be authentic with you, could be authentic with each other. And unfortunately, that doesn't always happen. But I always tell people, ask your friend, like, say, be honest with me. What do you think? And people realize things, but it's just, oh, this is how they are. So they're just used to it, but they don't really name it that way. And so a lot of times people, I've been talking to so many people over the years because of what I do for work. And people are always shocked to like see what people are seeing in them because they don't really realize it.
Yeah, often. And depending upon, most people are non-confrontational.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're exhibiting behaviors that the other person is not okay with, there are a lot of people who just remove themselves. And they're like, what happened to so and so? And we just kind of lost track. Well, no, that person had an ongoing issue that we may not have been aware of. And rather than confront us, they just remove themselves, or figure out why we're always getting passed over for the promotion, or why we're not picked for this. It's because we have things about ourselves that we may not be aware that we're doing. And the other people, rather than open up the can of worms of confronting us on those things, they just rather not deal with us.
And then, so the assessment that you provide to people, and which I've taken, and a lot of people have taken it, it's an instrument where it allows people to actually see and go a little bit deeper. And it's a printout. It prints out a report that kind of shows you some ways you work well in, where you don't really work well, your blind spots, right?
Yeah, like the ideal environment, and
Mm-hmm.
then the least ideal environment for
Mm-hmm.
us.
Mm-hmm.
And the report does, and what I'm a fan of this particular assessment, is it gives language. Like, a lot of us know our feelings and we know our moods, but sometimes we can't articulate that to somebody else. So going through the assessment and working through the report, it gives us language that we can then communicate to somebody else. Okay, my issue is not this, but it's actually A, B, and C. I can actually lay out in front of you, this is what begets this. When I'm in this type of situation, I have a tendency to respond this way. And so the whole premise is just be self-aware, but without judgment. It's not through the lens of, is this good, bad, right, or wrong, if I should or shouldn't. It just is. And so I can then decide if it's serving me or not. But at least I would like to know how I am. And I can know how I react and how I respond, and where environments that I would survive in versus environments that I would thrive in.
Yeah, and I love the idea of non-judgmental. You know, when I did the report, it said that I work well helping people solve problems. I work well with people. And imagine if I was like working in an office as an accountant or something. And then I get the report. Well, before the report, let's just say I'm judging myself because I'm like unhappy, but I get paid well. My needs are provided for me, but and that's why the not having a non-judgmental approach is important for yourself, and really learning the environments that work well. Because not that the accountant environment is bad, but it's not the best for me.
Yes.
And let's say like I have people that may have a job that maybe pay well, but I say maybe finding another outlet that provides you with, like, let's say I wanted to stay with the accountant job because I'm getting all this money, but I find another environment where I can actually like work with people or be around people more, right? So the more you understand yourself, the more you can work on creating the environment that works best. It's not an overnight process, but it's really good to understand yourself better.
Very much so. When it comes in professional aspect, once you go through the report and then you ask somebody what they do, you can almost instantly say, okay, I can tell probably all the issues you're having at work.
Yeah.
Or
yeah.
Everything about this says you need to be social, but you have a desk job. Let me guess, it takes you 20 minutes to get from the bathroom to your desk every day.
Yeah.
You're everywhere all over the office except where you're supposed to be. Yeah, because you're innately wired to be super social, and you picked a career where you're not. And that may be why you have anxiety about the job, or why you're dispassionate or
Right.
disconnected. So it's just a good idea to say human beings don't come with an owner's manual. This is kind
Yeah.
of ours.
Yeah.
And it's just about knowing,
Yeah.
but knowing
Okay.
ourselves.
Nice. And then today, so one of the things, and I always like to kind of share about what he does, and just his whole branding around self-awareness without judgment, and understanding yourself is such an important thing for people to understand, whether you decide to take the DISC assessment or not. But I just think really starting to pay attention to the things that work for you and don't work for you, and take a non-judgmental approach. But one of the things that you wanted to talk about today was this idea of dealing with failure. Such an important topic. I guess we could just start with thinking about what is failure? Like, how would you define it, or what would you say to people? Because people can use that word very loosely.
So first is just basically an unachieved goal. So if you're saying I made an attempt at something and I did not reach that goal, by just, I think we're talking about Webster's, that just like that you can say deemed as that's a failure, because I made an attempt, I had a goal and I didn't reach it. But I think with humans, we're way more nuanced, and so when we start talking about failure, usually it's the interpretation of the situation that truly deems it a failure or not. So if the goal was I was going to go to college for 4 years and get a bachelor's in English, I dropped out after 2 and got a job that I'm successful in. Technically, I failed at college, but I'm not a failure because I'm in the field that should work for me and I'm doing what I want. You know what I mean? So it's, what are we labeling ourselves failures at? Where does that come from? And then what do we do with it once we have it? That makes sense?
Yeah, it makes sense, because like I get it. Like, that didn't work out. Like, I failed at that, but you're like, failure, I'm a failure, or I failed at that. Language is important, but a lot of times people will, the thing that they failed at, they will frame it as like, I'm a failure.
Yes. So when we're saying I failed at this, I made an attempt and I was not successful with the attempt that I began. So I failed at this particular thing. And depending upon how we frame those types of things in our lives, we can get really bad on the scorecard of these what we deem as missed opportunities, as failed attempts, as losses. And we can constantly keep racking up a lot of these if we're not learning to see the big picture, understanding everything that's happening, and then processing so we can move past whatever the situation was. So yes, you technically failed college because you did not get the degree, which was the desired goal. What did you do in its place? Oh, well, partially why I dropped out is because I met my future wife, after my first year. Then I got a great job. Then we got married. Then we had kids, and I went a completely different direction. Okay, well, you can call I mean, is that a failure? And so, but for some people, yes, they'll hold on to failing at college. They'll hold on to failing at a relationship. They'll hold on to failing at entrepreneurship or trying to move up in certain areas, and they only see the loss and they take the loss with them.
And when Jermaine says like we start to rack up these failed attempts, I want people to understand the mind goes out the direction you take it.
Yes.
So if you are focusing and you get so hard on yourself, your mind starts to continue to look for evidence that is the same thing as what's in your mind. People don't realize how powerful it is. And so Jermaine says, like, looking at the bigger picture, it's like, yeah, I acknowledge that college here didn't work out. Right. And what's the bigger picture? Maybe this isn't the right thing. Maybe I want to do something more with my hands where the books aren't going to provide me. Right. But that's something that I've always been able to do. I feel like innately where there's a lot of attempts that I failed at.
Yeah.
But I've never looked at myself as a failure. I'll be like, okay, this didn't work, but what can I do? And I realized like working with people, that doesn't happen automatically, unfortunately. And so I know that's the nuance. People always say, how do you stay consistent? It's like everything I've tried didn't work out. But I don't look at it as a bad thing. I say, okay, well, what can I do? And that's something that's so important, I think, for people to hear.
Yeah, because a lot of people look at life as a series of short races as opposed to the marathon of our existence. So if life is just a series of sprints, okay, well, then you failed at everything at some point. But if you look at it as the marathon of our existence, then all that is a part of the process. First time we tried to walk, we fell down. Okay, well, we failed at trying to walk. First time we tried to read, we couldn't sound the word. Okay, we failed at trying to read. Like, if you want to call those failures because of whatever we've attached that to ourselves, then when we look at the scorecard, we're going to see a whole lot of chalk marks on the failure side of our life. If we looked at, okay, I made 10 attempts at learning to walk, but on the 11th one, I made it across the living room. Okay, well, that was just me trying to learn how to walk. There's not a failure attached to that experience. So I don't carry around all the 10 times I stumbled or couldn't get up. So how we frame and look at failure and look at the things that we're going through is huge, because if we see everything that we do as a pass or fail, and then we carry every failure with us, that's a very it's a very heavy burden to bear.
Yeah.
And we only have so much room for so much stuff. And if we're choosing to make that what we carry, then there's not a lot of room for the other aspects of our lives that would probably serve us better.
Yeah, that's really good. And you use the baby walking example, and I always like to use that, before a lot of trauma or issues come into play. The environment that babies have is they're surrounded by people that are walking, so their goal is always in front of them. Yeah. And I think about now and just how much we're exposed to, whether it's the internet, like all of these things. Before the other day, I was just talking to somebody because Martin episodes just came back on Netflix. Yeah. And I wasn't really allowed to watch it, so I'm watching it. It's funny. And somebody said, really, I'm watching it again, and it's not that funny. Or the Wayans brothers. But I thought about it, and I was like, you know what? Back then, we didn't have options. So it was, that was the only thing we had. And we had to sit in front of the TV. For people that don't understand this, we had to watch it when it came out. We didn't have an option to watch it on demand. And so it was the only thing we were exposed to. Now we have so many other options. So, but I think about now, babies have the ability to see people walking, so they keep going. Yeah. Right now, when people are framing their lifestyle or where they are, they're seeing so many people where they may want to be, or they're not seeing their process. And I think people don't understand how, like, for me, when I see people doing things that I would want to do, it feels inspiring. Yeah. But I recognize for some people, it can feel hard. Like, they don't realize how some of their environment may keep them in a dark space, or if they have family members that may talk a certain way about life, right? Like, oh, you can't, the white man this, and then you just learned that, like, oh, I just have to like stay down because what's the point, right? People don't understand how it's not just the way you're framing it, but maybe some of your environment might be creating
Yeah.
the psyche of like, I'm a failure. What are your thoughts about that?
Incredibly, like, like if you let the world tell you who you are, it's usually not going to write you as the hero of the story. So all these, I'm comparing
Especially in the
myself to
Black
this person.
community in
What's
America.
that?
Especially the Black community in America.
Yeah, it's not, you're not going to be the hero of the story. So if you're leaving it up to the world to tell you who you are, it's probably not going to go well. And comparing ourselves to other people, like I said, if it's looking for inspiration, I get that. It's why younger siblings usually walk sooner than older ones, because they're trying to keep up with their brothers and sisters, and they talk sooner because there's people always talking at them because they're close in age. So if you're using the people around you as like a goal, that's fine. But it's those things that when we're not that, or we're not there yet, or we may never be. If we constantly keep internalizing that, that's where we'll always we'll start looking at our lives through the failure lens. And so then we start finding lack of motivation. We become disinterested, and we're not passionate about things. We get frustrated all the time. It's kind of like a what's the point kind of energy about us. And then that can lead to isolation. I don't want to be around people all the time because they're winning and I'm not. It's not my season. Or I just don't want to talk about it. Someone's going to ask me about it and I don't want to. And we start withdrawing, and we can start finding a lot of our life can start looking like the self-proclaimed prophecy of that failure lens. Because now in isolation, I don't have those friends. I don't have those relationships. I don't have these things are not happening. I'm not out here partying like they are on the gram. I'm not out here and everybody seems to be celebrating but me. And these things would just start to compound. And the body will listen to the brain. And so now we have less energy. Now our sleep is kind of messed up. Now our stomach is messed up. Our appetite isn't there. We don't want to do things. And like all these losses that we've internalized through our brain will show up in our body. And then that only confirms to our brain that we must have been right. And so holding on to all this idea of all these things being failures and that meaning something about us, it's a spiral that can start quickly and we can fall into it way deeper than we might realize.
That's so true. And another thing, as we're talking about family, I think about some family systems where you were, expected to be this or that, or be this provider, or this go-to person. And maybe you don't have the capacity, or maybe that's not the direction you want to go. And being mindful of your mindset around, I feel that is this even what I want to do?
Yeah.
Because sometimes, I talk about success and how it's important to define what success looks like for you, not what society says.
Yeah.
And I think about people that are on a trajectory that may not be the trajectory that they really want. And taking a trajectory that works for them, but also feeling like a failure in the process.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Doing those things because I'm supposed to, or mom wants me to, or because my sister did, or all those things. And then and if I don't live up to those things, because maybe that was my sister wanted to go to law school since she was 3, like, and so she's in law school becoming an attorney, and that is her dream. But because she's an attorney doesn't mean that I can't be anything else. Isn't your brother a doctor, and isn't your sister this, and what do you do? I work a job that I'm fulfilled at, and I was fine till I talked to you. Like,
Even the way you framed it, you see how you said, "Wait, you're a doctor,
Yeah.
you're a doctor, lawyer, and you do what?" Or people be like, "Wait, why are you single?" Like, they make it seem like something's wrong, and then if you're not mindful, you don't realize how that's making you feel, like you failed at this thing that you may not even want to do.
Yeah, your life choices there's supposed to be some type of mold. You're supposed to be something, whatever that something is. And every way that we're not like that, if we don't have the number one, the self-awareness of realizing, no, that does not suit me. Like that's a jacket that doesn't fit. So me not being that is completely fine because that's not supposed to be me. I have no desire to do that. But if we sit there and let other people dictate that to us, they'll tell us those 20 businesses you tried to start and none of them got off the ground. You learned in all 20 processes. You learned a little bit of this. You made some connections over here. You did a little bit. You're sleeping just fine at night with those things not panning out. But then you get around other people and they're telling you you're a failure because, that store closed. Oh, this failed or this and that. Why don't you just go and get a job here? Why don't you just, you're like, no, I'm okay with the process. Like, I don't take those as losses. But if we don't know that and have that about ourselves, we'll let other people dictate what is a loss to us. And the second we start to believe them, then our wins are their decision as well. And so we're waiting for somebody else to then start scoring our lives. Well, they said that's a win, so I'm winning. And now I need something outside of me to feel good about where I am.
Wow, allowing people to decide your wins, that's powerful. Like, because a lot of times I know when you work with people as well, when you frame something a certain way, it's not rocket science, but it really makes people think about it. Yeah. And the idea of me letting somebody else choose what a win is for me, it just doesn't sit well. And it can make you like reframe the way you're thinking about your life and what you're doing and not doing. So I think that's a powerful statement for somebody.
Very common though.
Yeah.
I'm fine in my Ford. You driving that old little car?
Yeah.
I was fine with it till you said something. Yeah. Now I got to go out and get a car I can't afford.
Yeah.
So you can say I'm doing okay in life.
Yeah. Living paycheck. There's some people living paycheck to paycheck, not because they don't make enough money to survive, but they're really living beyond their means because they care about, they've been rewarded. Oh, you got this job or you got this car. So it feels good. Those endorphins are going out. So they try to keep up. And not recognizing like they're harming themselves. So many Americans are like that right now. Doing these things not out of necessity, but out of the fact that they want to look like they look good, Yeah,
because once you decide to let somebody else dictate your wins, then you'll marry somebody that you're in a business marrying. You'll have kids because you're quote unquote supposed to.
Yeah.
You'll work this job, live in this place, do these activities, be involved around this, be around these people, put yourself in all these situations and scenarios so somebody outside of you can say that you're winning. And the problem with that is then those are the stories you hear about. Well, man, they seem like the perfect couple or they had it all or they this and this. And no, like at some point you'll reach a breaking point where you're like, this is not working.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how much money I make.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how new or big the house is. It doesn't matter how many degrees I have in this. Like I'm living a life that does not serve me. And so I need to do something different.
And you're in California, but a lot of those reality shows and stuff are in California. I think about all these reality stars that have been going to jail lately for fraud. But they put this lifestyle on TV and they try to keep up with it. And I just every time I see the downfall, I'm like, I wonder when they're in jail or in court, are they looking back and saying, well, was this even worth it? Like I wonder if it was even worth trying to keep up with people. Now you're in jail, nobody cares. Like new storyline.
Yeah. See, so just for my state, it's a very weird dynamic of California. The dichotomy of we have Hollywood, which is like, the plastic factory, right? Nothing's real that comes out of there.
Yeah.
But we're also the birthplace of hippies.
Yeah, which is so different.
So we got the tree hugging, Birkenstock wearing, peace and free love. Let me walk barefoot through the park or down the sidewalk and anti-capitalism and hug a tree and a squirrel. And so you see one group will say that person is a loser. Why? Because they drive around in an old Volkswagen bus and
happy,
dirty feet and wearing the same shirt for 3 days. But if you ask them about quality of life, they wake up every day purposeful, happy, and fulfilled.
Yeah.
And the person who's driving the brand new 2025, whatever, living in however many square feet, whatever, who has the boxes checked. How happy are you with your life? happy is not even a factor. It's productivity. It's how does this look? It's box checking, and so, fulfillment is not even, happiness is not even on the table. And so, but one will say the other one is a failure. And then the hippie side is saying, no, you're a failure because you're just existing. You're not even living life. You're not even happy in the life you're living. You got money, got kids you never see, a significant other you have a light relationship with, no real friends. You work 60 hours a week. You're not like, but you think you're winning. And if I let you dictate my wins, then my fulfilled life every day, I'm a failure.
Yeah.
But if I believe that this is what's winning for me, then I'm fine. So,
Yeah.
How we identify and internalize what we deem as failing is key to the life that we live.
Yeah, I love that. When people listening right now, if they're recognizing some truths to what we're saying, and they may be comparing, what would you say to people to really start to work on looking at things that didn't work? Like, so I think it's okay. And perspective is everything, right?
Yeah.
Um, some people, their perspective around something failing feels negative. It can feel hard because you didn't expect that to happen, right? But then also, okay, like, how can I, like, my superpowers, like, how can I like change this, or what can I make, how do I make this work? Like, it's just so natural for me. I don't get hard on myself internally like a lot of people do. But what would you say to people that may struggle with looking at all of the things that didn't work as a failure and finding themselves pretty stagnant in life? Because that's
Yeah.
essentially what happens.
Yeah. So if you're somebody who feels like you're failing in this life, if you feel like it, so pen and paper is always ideal for me to start with. What are we talking about? Are we saying I feel like a failure because I don't make X amount of dollars? Like, is that what we're talking about? Am I a failure because I haven't found love because I'm single? Is that what we're discussing? Have I found both those things, but it doesn't look like somebody else says? Like what are we talking about first off? So let's actually get a clear understanding of what is this? What am I using as this gauge? And then is this mine? Like, is this gauge mine? Am I okay driving a 1997? I don't even know if they still made Ford Escorts in 97, but if I'm am I okay every day in that? Yes. Okay. But if I feel like a failure in it, where did I get that? Whose idea is that? Oh, when I pulled up, they were cracking jokes on my car. Oh, so that's why I feel bad about my 97 Ford Escort now. Okay, well, now I'm giving that control to somebody else. So let me start shoring up the things with me of like, I don't need the outside validation. Like I'm okay with me. My car doesn't define me anyway. Like I drive this so I can afford to do that, which is more fulfilling. Like if we're trying to deal with these things, if we're starting to beat ourselves up, or we're looking at the scorecard and it just looks like an infinite number of things that we failed at or that are not going our way, identifying what they are, where they came from, if they're even ours, and then if we deem them correct, like I really want to do this and I'm just not being successful at it, then let's actually start tackling the things that we're failing at. Like you want to graduate college and you're getting D's. Like this is not somebody else's dream. This is not somebody. How can I approach school different? What's getting in my way of being successful at this? Like a lot of the things that we deem as failures are not ours, but some of them are. So some of these things we are taking them on the chin. So let's get rid of the ones that aren't ours, and then let's start effectively putting plans together to deal with the things that we can deal with. The subside to that is that a lot of us are carrying around losses that are no longer here. They're no longer present. So they're not losses that happened in 2024 or even 2023. We're still carrying around 1992 losses. Or we're carrying around 1998 losses or 05 losses. Like, so some of us, the losses and the failure that we're dealing with is not a current situation. And if that's the case, then that's when we have to start looking at why is it so important for me to keep this label of a failure and to attach that to myself? What is the guilt that's attached to this? How is it attached to my self-worth? What judgment do I have linked to this? Why is my 2010 divorce the number one thing in my head when I think about love in 2024? Why can I not go back to school at 35 that would better my situation because I struggled through school through the 10th, 11th, and 12th grade 25 years ago. Like there's people who haven't been in school in over 2 decades, but they won't go now because they had a hard time then. Like, what is the attachment I have to those failures that I feel the need to keep them with me today? That makes sense?
Yeah, that's powerful. The subset of carrying the losses. It's the same where when I'm working with people around things that they're struggling with now that are very much linked to something in their history, but because the body keeps the score and we haven't processed some things, we haven't processed that loss. It's easy for us to keep that in our mind, where when we do get ready to sign up for this, it feels hard.
Yeah.
Right. There's so many things. People are beating themselves up for not starting something or not doing that next step and not recognizing where it stems from, regardless of fault. Like sometimes it's things that we may have not done, or it could have been something else that wasn't our fault. But regardless of fault, thinking about responsibility, because I always tell people you can never go back and change the past. But unfortunately, we're allowing something we can't change to stop us from our present and our future.
Yes.
And if people really think about that, I feel like it can help them go a long way with making that next step, because we are really continuing to harm ourselves day after day, month after month, year after year. When if we start now, we could be in a different place in 6 months,
Definitely. Like those past, and I'm saying failures basically in quotations, listeners and stuff, because it's interpretational for most of these things. Like I said, a lot of this is when we see life as the process. Okay, I needed to fail out of college to become this. I needed that relationship to end to open me up potentially for this one. I needed to lose that money here. So I'm smarter about money now for the rest of my life because I know what happens when I'm irresponsible with it. Like when you look at things as the process, okay, that was my 8th, 9th, 10th attempt at walking. I was walking on the 11th. But if we are carrying around the first time we tried to walk and fell down, the second time we tried to walk and fell down, the third time and to now we just sit, we're just like, I don't want to fall again. Okay, well, even if we do, it's still a part of the process. And being mindful of like not being so, being okay with that being in the process. Like being okay. If you're going to box, you're going to get hit. It's a part of the process. If you're going to run, you're going to get tired. It's a part of the process. If that's going to be there. And so for the people who are finding themselves in that space of I'm unmotivated now, I'm finding myself, disinterested and disconnecting, and I'm having issues engaging with people, and I isolate because I think it's everybody else's winning season but me. I think that it's, I just kind of start withdrawing because I know we get kind of similar people, but for different reasons. And so people I know who are trying to make changes and they find themselves stuck in that rut. Some of the things to do if you're in that space, like I said, after you get past identifying what it is, small wins. Start with the small wins. There's that the old adage about getting up and making up your bed the first thing when you get up in the morning. Small win. Make sure you take the trash out every day. Small win. Make sure the dishes are clean. Fold that laundry that's been on your bed for 3 days.
Yeah.
Small wins. Volunteering, where you're giving without there's not a loss there.
Mm-hmm.
Picking up trash, I pick up 2 pieces. Okay, that's 2 pieces more than anybody asked me to. So okay, that's a small win. Like just getting in the habit of getting for the self-esteem aspect.
Yes.
I need to get some wins. If I'm going to make everything a loss, then I need to start chalking some wins on the other side. So get those small wins where you can and appreciate them when you get them.
Yeah, I like that. And
That
it makes a lot of sense. And thinking about kind of every day, thinking about like what am I grateful for and what went well today? Because if you stop and pause, you'll find things that went well today. Like I actually got to work on time, or I actually made my bed, or I actually prepared my lunch the night before. Unfortunately, we don't look at these wins as a big deal because everybody's just looking for the thing that's in your face, the house, the car, the status.
Yeah.
But in order to get to that point, there's little things that you have to do. And I want people to, as Jermaine was talking about, like a plan and thinking about the areas, for people that are watching. I just put up a wellness wheel, but for people that are listening, if you Google wellness wheel, different variations that come out, but there's different areas of our life: emotional, environmental, financial, social, physical, occupational, intellectual, and really like looking at like how satisfied I am in that area and what do I need for those areas of my life. And that can help you really come up with a plan. I know a lot of people struggle with thinking about a plan for or where do I start? Like, how do I look at the areas I feel like I might be a failure, or I'm unsatisfied? And if you actually have a visual with the different areas of your life, it can actually help you see. And then when I do this with people, they'll be like, I'm failing at everything. And then we break everything down. They realize actually I am doing well in some areas. And I actually do have a plan for the areas that I'm maybe not doing well in. We don't realize this is happening. Logically we can know something, but in the moment of our emotions, we forget that we actually are meeting with a financial advisor next week, or we're meeting with somebody that's helping us with our resume, but we're not looking at that as a small win because we haven't gotten that job yet or that 6 figures in our account. So really being mindful of working on, like Jermaine said, like thinking about a plan, and then visualizing it, like putting it somewhere you can see, the same way we talked about the baby seeing the people walking every day. If you actually really work on visualizing the environment that you want, it'll help you keep motivated. And just know that motivation doesn't come and then you do it and the motivation is there. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And those external things, those the job, the bank account, the car, the house, the social recognition and
Mhm.
validation, those are all the things that are on the outside. That's like our car, that's like our house, that's like our
Yeah.
clothes. But the thing about small victories, realistically, that builds us are like your eyelids, your heart, and your lungs.
Mm.
So during the course of our conversation, how many times did your heart beat?
Mhm.
No clue. How many times did you breathe in and out? No idea. How many times did you blink? Couldn't tell you. Those are autopilot functions, but
Mhm.
they are imperative to our survival and our ability to do things.
Mhm.
We're getting wins every day.
Mhm.
We just don't think about them because they're not on the external side where somebody is saying, oh, hey, you're breathing. Oh, hey,
Mhm.
your heart is beating. Oh,
Mhm.
hey, you're blinking. Like you've got sight.
Mhm.
So when we get up, that's a win.
Yep.
When we make it through the day, that's a win. Like the opportunity to do things to put us in a better position and to have the life we want, those are all wins.
Yeah.
Even like I said, the simple stuff. You got up and made your bed, walked in, did your job, even if it wasn't the ideal job you wanted, that's still a win. If we're gonna look at these things, and so it's harder to recognize them because they go on. We just do them.
Mhm.
Um, but it's important to stop and be like, okay, what went right? Okay, I did get up today. I did
Yeah.
go to the gym like I told myself I was going
Yeah.
to. I did stay away from sweets like I told myself I'm trying to.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't overindulge in this. I didn't do like, okay, I made a point to just stop and say I'm feeling, gracious about some stuff. That's a win. That's the eyelids, that's the heartbeat, that's the lungs. Like these are the things that we may not think about, but they are the building blocks of our lives and ourselves, and they need to be they appreciated as well. So I know we
Mhm.
don't get the external accolades for those things, but we are still winning, even if it does not feel like our winning season.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. This is a really good conversation. You always Jermaine always comes up with the topics that we're going to talk about, and they're always. I mean, obviously, with you working with people, you understand kind of like the areas that people struggle with because people don't realize it. Was it nothing news under the sun? A
Yeah.
lot of the things that people go through, you probably you've seen it a lot, and I always say the solution is the same. The solution, like the struggles may look different, but the solution, you're gonna find yourself
Right.
regurgitating a lot of the solutions or the things that can
Yeah.
help people. And this idea of failing and failure, it was something not until I went into private practice I realized a lot of people don't naturally just be like, oh, okay, like what can I do differently? Like I had no idea that wasn't a normal thing for people. And so it was a really great conversation that's going to help somebody really think about reframing the way they're framing their life.
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully. Well, thank you. I hope it does help somebody. I know we grow up in this pass or fail society.
Mm-hmm.
Like, a firm believer that this world is not light switch, it's way more dimmer. Like, it's
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
varying degrees of something as opposed to just this or that.
It's not black and white, right? That we don't know. There's gray areas and we have to like pay attention to it. And so just because society doesn't recognize it, your family doesn't, your culture may not know that, regardless of all of that, you can create an environment that can really work for what you need.
Yeah.
And it's not an overnight switch, but if you work at it, your mind will help you continue to like go at that direction. So,
Yes, very much so.
Jermaine, tell people where they can find you.
So if you have any questions on the assessment or any of the stuff I do, you can go to mykeystome.com. That's MYKEYSTOME, mykeystome.com. There's more information on the assessment, coaching stuff, and get you signed up for a consultation to kind of walk you through the process. And if you feel so inclined to get started, and all social media platforms are all at J Morris